And Mel Stride is the latest leadership contender to distance himself from Nigel Farage, claiming the Reform UK leader's comments about the Southport attack and the suspect had put the police in danger.
Yes, he also said he wouldn't allow the MP for Clacton to join the Conservative Party if he were to become Tory leader, meaning now all 6 candidates have completely closed the door on the possibility of Farage joining the party.
Well, it comes a day after Shadow Security Minister Tom Tugendhat also heavily criticised Nigel Farage, claiming he'd been deeply irresponsible and dangerous in trying to amplify false information about the Southport attack.
Right, well, to discuss this further is GB News political editor Christopher Hope. Why are they all speaking out about Nigel Farage, then?
Well, we're asking them, Emily. So we're asking them, what are you going to do?
You're stirring it up.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You're stirring it up.
It is August. No, I mean, I think part of the conversation the Tory party must have with itself is what to do about Farage. It's a problem they've had for about 10 to 15 years now, how to respond to the kind of people who like him, like what he talks about. I'm intrigued that all 6 candidates say there's no future for Farage in the Tory party. The Reform UK party, such as it is actually a company in which there are 15 shares, 8 of them are owned by Farage. He could easily wind up overnight and merge it with the Tory party if he wanted to. He's not going to. He said, it's of no interest to me whatsoever today of what the Tory candidates think about me. But, you know, the former leader, Rishi Sunak, did say that the party was a broad church and that opened the door to Farage rejoining the party that he did join years and years ago. And that's not going to happen now under any of the 6 leaders of the guys who want to replace Sunak.
And you've been speaking to Mel Stride most recently. He now completes the 6.
Yes.
Which means, in effect, Nigel Farage will be banned from joining whoever wins.
That's right. It's a ban on Farage. And I find this fascinating because those 6 face a choice. Do they tack into the middle ground, go after the Labour voters, Lib Dem voters, soft Tories who like reform, or do they try and unite the right and take on Labour? And now some would say uniting the right is what you do first of all, and then you go tack back towards taking on Labour. But they're all saying that not for me. And with Mel Stride, I should say, he was quite outspoken about Farage. He said that the comments by Nigel Farage when he questioned whether we've been told the truth by the police about what's being withheld from us about the attacker on those 3 girls shortly after the attacks in Southport, he said that risked the safety of the police. Here's what he had to say.
How is it helpful when you've got police officers going out there risking their lives in a rioting situation to be questioning whether they're being truthful with the public, for example? It's likely to lead to more police officers ending up getting in more trouble than they would otherwise.
So his remarks,
so it's not responsible.
His remarks are putting the safety of police at risk.
I think his remarks about the police not being truthful, potentially, around what happened, let me put it like this, were deeply unhelpful to those officers that were then having to go out and deal with the consequence of the rioting.
Given all that, would you allow him to be a member of the Tory party if you were leader?
Absolutely not. I made that very clear. So no deals with Nigel Farage. Look, Nigel Farage wants to destroy the Conservative Party.
That was Mel Stride there on my podcast, our political podcast, Chopper's Political Podcast, making clear no deals with Nigel Farage. And we do intend to speak to all of the 5 other candidates as best we can before the end of the month.
Is this a mistake, though, Christopher? I mean, OK, a lot of things have changed. He started a new party, for one thing. But last Tory party conference, I think you'll remember as well as I do, just how much...
Mobbed.
He was mobbed. He was mobbed. There was so much support for him from the membership. Membership clearly thought that Nigel Farage was on their side. So is this a mistake? Could this alienate some of the members?
Good question, Emily. I'm not standing for the Tory leadership. I would say that it could be a mistake. I think if I was standing for the leadership, I would hold a doorway open to Farage-East people concerned about Labour, the Tories, and went towards Farage and say, well, we agree on so much, can't we do some kind of agreement? The problem is Farage has been saying things which do offend a lot of Tories about Putin, notably the riots. There's been some strong words on both sides. But were I standing in this election, I would not have said this. I think there's a chance there you can pull him back in on some areas. And I think having this, you know, it does mean you only appeal to a certain group of people now going forward for the Tory party.
Very interesting. Christopher Hope, our political editor, thank you very much indeed for that scoop. Thank you.
Well, we're now joined by the political commentator Andy Williams. Andy, frankly, there are 2 big questions here. What should the Tories do to claw their way back to power? And does anyone care?
Well, I think one of the major challenges they face is getting people to listen to them, because obviously, you know, this is a party that sunk to an enormous defeat after 14 years in power. And one of the principal reasons for their defeat was that people were jaded with them. People were sick of the Conservatives. So getting people to listen will be a challenge. I actually do not think Nigel Farage is the answer. I don't think it's in the Conservatives' interests for him to be involved in the Conservative Party for two major reasons. Firstly, he's not conservative. He's a libertarian. He doesn't actually believe in conservative values. And secondly, Nigel Farage, as we all know, if we're honest, is only interested in Nigel Farage. So he will do whatever it takes to keep himself in the limelight and to keep himself relevant, but he's not a Conservative. He doesn't care
Andy,
about the Conservative
there are lots
Party.
of people in the Conservative Party who perhaps are neoliberal or who are libertarian, who aren't necessarily traditionally of the small c Conservative variety of Conservative. Is it not a mistake to alienate supporters of Nigel Farage who could potentially come back to the Conservatives with the right leader?
Well, I think all election-winning machines, whether they're Labour or Conservative, they have to be broad churches. And I think actually Labour did a very good job at this election of showing that you have to be open-minded. You have to, you know, the most centrist party wins every general election. That's the story of the last 40, 50 years. There is a significant but quite small and very vocal constituency for Nigel Farage's brand of politics. And I would compare it in many ways to Jeremy Corbyn. You know, Jeremy Corbyn was an incredibly popular Labour leader with a minority of people, but for a majority of people, he was an extremely alienating and polarising figure. And I see Farage in the same light.
It is actually very interesting looking at Jeremy Corbyn, who, of course, very, very popular in Islington, was able to win his seat as an independent, booted out of the Labour Party. He's now started being pretty chummy with those four other independents who were elected, mainly talking about Gaza in the election. They've started signing letters together, calling themselves the Independents. I wonder if those sort of five people could be considered, well, I don't want to say equivalent, but
Gosh,
similar...
I'm sure Nigel Farage would dispute that very strongly, that he's anything like Jeremy Corbyn.
Different in terms of politics, but in the way in which, or perhaps different in terms of policy, but in the way that if I could think of maybe three people who could fill an arena with their speaking in this country, it would be Jeremy Corbyn, Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson. Easy peasy, right? But maybe none of them today could actually win an election, Andy.
I think that's exactly right. You look at these sorts of people and they command really passionate support, but not from a broad group of people. And I just think the reality is that, and this is actually the great challenge, come back to the original question about the Conservative leadership. Do any of these six candidates look like people who can command mass popular support? I think that's a really difficult question. I mean, with all due respect to Mel Stride, who's very professional, seemingly very good chap, is he a prime minister? I don't think so. And I think if you look at these six candidates, you have to really look very, very closely and think, could any of these people genuinely win a general election?
But a lot of people thought Keir Starmer didn't stand a chance, and there he is with a whopping great majority. Andy Williams, we'll leave it there, political commentator. Thank you very much indeed.